Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I'm joined by Sam Williams. Sam, welcome.
Thomas, thank you very much for having me on.
It's nice when you come and frequent my podcast. I like it when you come on as a guest.
Yeah, well, I do feel like a guest today because it's going to be a Course Diaries episode about Crosland Heath. So,
A course I have not played.
for a bit of a change, I'm planning to do the lion's share of talking on this podcast, which would be a nice break.
That's not true. You do most of the talking.
So, Tom, I mentioned on our podcast before last, we've since done a great episode with Alistair Beggs, I should say. I listened to that the other day of you and Bruce chatting to him, and it's a brilliant episode.
People said Bruce did really well on that podcast, which really upset me because I was right in my element with Alistair Beggs. But
I think Bruce plays the layperson really well, and it's not a role he has to play very often on the podcast. I think it's a really, really good episode. I mean, fascinating stuff that you guys are talking about. And I feel like it's a pretty sort of neat segue into Crosland Heath and
affordable golf.
Yeah, well, it's a model for sustainable golf, isn't it? And I think he touches on a couple of threads there, like site selection, the fact that the greats knew where to put great golf courses, all of that stuff. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to telling you a little bit about it because I've not shared tons with you really about it.
Nothing.
And it's been a course that's been on my radar to play for quite some time.
Why?
I think I saw a picture of a par 3 and that was it. And it just stuck in my head. And then one of the guys, Mike, who's come to some of our events in the past, I knew he's a member up there. But I've never found time to play it. I think would you say it's the Pennines? Is that basically it?
I don't know where it is. You can have to tell me where it is.
It's right by Huddersfield.
Not an area of the world I know all too well, must say.
It's a strange part. So for anyone outside the UK listening to this, Huddersfield is like a very sort of old industrial town situated kind of between Leeds and Manchester over the Pennines, which is the most beautiful sort of stretch of sort of rocky moorland, very, very high up in the country. And it's just beautiful. All the houses have this wonderful sort of dark brick character to them. It's unmistakably, Pennines, I guess. But it's not a place that you're very often driving through because you come off the sort of one road that takes you from Manchester to Leeds and you've got to kind of hunt your way down there. But a friend of mine lives up there. I haven't seen him for quite some time. Prospect of going out for a few drinks with him on the Saturday night and said, where should we play golf on Sunday? So doing a bit of research, I was so giddy when I saw that Crosland Heath was a mere 8-minute drive away from his.
Serendipity, some would say.
Some would say, absolutely. So we went out in a place called Holmfirth.
Called what?
Holmfirth.
Holmfirth. Okay.
Holm, which is where they filmed Last of the Summer Wine.
For those people that aren't over the age of 45, what's Last of the Summer Wine?
What do you mean who aren't over the age of... Well, you must remember it.
We are only just the cusp of people that would remember Last of the Summer Wine.
Yeah, or
like
if you're
finished
in the US
when I was like
anywhere
6 or
else
7.
in the world. I don't think it's a big thing in the States, for example.
No, I doubt it.
I mean, what are your memories of Last of the Summer Wine?
I remember it being about old people.
Yeah.
I remember there being like a sleepy sort of stream that goes through the village.
Yep.
And there being a corner to a road, like the kind of a loopy corner. Beyond that, I can't tell you anything about Last of the Summer Wine.
Well, you remember a lot more about the infrastructure of the town than I do. All I remember is they used to show it on a Sunday night.
Okay, I didn't remember that. But yeah, that would make sense.
It was always on a Sunday night, and that was always the most depressing time of the week for a kid, wasn't it?
It was around about the same time as the snooker would be showed on BBC Two. You remember that? It was a big thing when we were kids, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course. And you had points of view and songs of praise and all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But Sunday afternoons were so grim as a kid. Do you remember?
It's only because of the impending doom of Monday.
Of course. So anything you put on TV, I think there's some scar tissue there. So Last of Summer Wine to me is always like, oh God, crap Sunday nights.
Wasn't it based in like a cafe or something?
Yeah. That cafe is still there.
Okay.
So that cafe window, I'll stick it on a...
Was it a bookshop? Was it like a bookshop?
I
And
think
they had
there
a
will be a
cafe.
bookshop there. It might have been a cafe with books. We didn't go in. We went in the evening. But I remember it being the sleepiest old people village. These guys walking up hills, dressed in tweed, sitting there, looking longingly into the distance. I think one of the characters, that Compo, used to harass the life out of Nora Batty. Do you remember her with the stockings or whatever that used to fall down?
The names ring a lot truer.
And
than,
it was all
than anything
it was
else.
all sort of like watched to that dreadful laughter track that you had on any sitcom in those days. So that really
Oh, did it
forced
have
laughter track.
canned laughter?
Yeah. I was thinking about it actually on the way over. We should maybe set one of our podcasts to canned laughter and see how it hits the ear.
We don't tell any jokes, though. That's the problem.
So yeah, it was a really weird sort of like drab place. I seem to remember watching on a Sunday night. But Holmfirth is beautiful, like really nice.
I can't say I'm
and
surprised.
super like kind of, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Another generation might call it bougie, I think.
I don't know what bougie means.
It's just quite cool and hip.
Oh, is it?
Load of really good wine bars.
Oh,
different
really?
craft beer places. We went to a Mexican. I don't remember Compo going here during last of the summer wine.
Going to a Mexican place and ordering enchiladas.
It was really good. Like a night in Holmfirth it was super. And we ended up going to see Mr. Scruff, the DJ. He was playing at a bar. Do you remember him?
No.
He's like he's been doing it for like 30 or 40 years. It's kind of all quite sensible DJing. It's everyone in the room is the wrong side of 35. Every single body and every single person in the crowd would remember Last of the Summer Wine.
Well, you would if you're from Holmfirth, at
You know,
least.
the volume's at slightly more of an acceptable level because all the clientele would be a bit annoyed if they couldn't hear themselves talk to each other, or they need to be able to have a gin and tonic. But it was all quite nice. We had a nice little evening there. So yeah, that's a little bit about the surrounding area.
This will tell you where it's bougie. Did the gin and tonics come with like interesting things inside, not just a
all
lemon?
sorts. Yeah.
Like there might be some juniper berries or maybe
beef carpaccio served inside them, or
yeah,
anything to sort of stick a bit of extra margin on. It was all very sort of like, it was all quite sort of quite nice,
quite posh.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I'm not joking. It is a beautiful part of the world. Anyone who gets a chance to sort of peel off on the way up north and go into that part of the world, it is absolutely beautiful.
So I suppose you're saying if you're not just in the hunt for golf, there's more than that.
That would be what I was saying.
But if you are in the hunt for golf, there is Crosland Heath.
Yeah, and there are a few up there. So we obviously had our spring meeting earlier this year, and a bit of an early sort of nod towards a film about Alwoodley Golf Club that will be coming out in a couple of weeks' time.
And they've got a good deal on at the moment, I hear.
They do indeed. Alwoodley Moortown. Do you know what? That's exciting. We're going to be playing in the Yorkshire Challenge next year.
Well, no, I've had the email through actually. The people that are playing in the Yorkshire Challenge are Sam Williams, Bruce Fitzpatrick, and Cookie Jar Golf.
I think that means me. So I think it means you and Bruce.
No, it's you, Bruce, and Cookie Jar.
No,
so
your
I must
name's
be
on
Cookie
it.
Jar.
Anyway, we've enjoyed spending a bit of time up around Moortown and Alwoodley, and the Yorkshire Challenge is played across Ganton, Lindrick and Moortown. But there's just so much great golf in that part of the world, like really, really great amounts of golf. I mean, obviously Alwoodley and Moortown in Leeds would be the sort of the premier spots. They do, you can usually get them on quite a nice stay and play deal. But there's others, and MacKenzie obviously was hugely influential around there. So I went and looked on the chronology for Alistair MacKenzie, which is outrageously detailed.
Detailed, isn't it? Like Tuesday, the 3rd of December, 1923. This is what he was eating for his dessert.
Yeah, seriously. So it's like they even know where he wrote these letters from, presumably because it says in the letter. But the detail and the density to the information is out. I mean, it's pretty mind bending that people have committed.
Would you say that no
time.
other architect has undergone the same level of historical scrutiny? Because it doesn't seem to be a Harry Colt chronology.
I think so. I think that's a fair take.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just Augusta,
Cyprus. Yeah, and Cypress Point. Strange, isn't it?
But then you don't see it over Crump or Colt was involved in Pine Valley.
That was his only course, wasn't it? Pine Valley.
Yeah, but Colt was involved in Pine Valley.
You're right. Colt would be a great example. Simpson. I don't. Now there is obviously lots out there, and people like Adam Lawrence have written, are in the process of writing comprehensively about Colt's life. But the fact that you can go onto a website, which is on the MacKenzie Society website, we should talk about this, You can go and download the chronology. They put it under version control, so people will add to it, then there'll be a latest version. You can download it and you can go through it line by line if you want to see exactly what he was up to. The minutiae in there is nuts. Anyway, what the point I'm driving at is just the scale of his work in and around Leeds. And just
well,
the
it's
number of
strange
courses.
because we live in Birmingham. For those that don't know the geography of England too well, Birmingham is in the Midlands. It's pretty much it's just south of slap bang in the middle of England, only because the north of England is quite sparse, and south of Birmingham is quite dense. Pretty much a rule of thumb. South of Birmingham, you might have 4 or 5 MacKenzie courses.
Yeah, not a lot. I think I think the thing was when he's, obviously Colt was a sort of was a business associate, contemporary, a peer, a number of things throughout their careers. And then there was this sort of unspoken thing about splits in the north and south.
North of Birmingham, there are many.
Loads, particularly over that side of the Pennines and into Leeds. So another one I want to play is Halifax. Halifax looks outstanding. Seaton Crew, wonderful links golf course, MacKenzie design. There's a huge number of these. So for some reason, Crosland Heath has stuck in my head. It's got Heath in the name, designed by MacKenzie. My understanding is it hadn't changed loads, and I'd seen some absolutely beautiful par threes. It's ridiculously good value. I think the green fee is like £40 or something like that. And yeah, I was just super keen to go and check it out. So
not to wax on the Church of Sam Williams before I vomit too much, the best part of a golf course is pulling up into the car park. Describe that experience.
Very, very high. I think some say it's a contender for the highest course in England. It's really, really high up.
It's high up in the air.
Very, very high, yeah, above sea. I mean, it's super high. You have literally panoramic views, north, south, east and west from where you're playing. So
it's on top of a mountain?
Quite, yeah. The profile of the land is all sort of, it gradually climbs. It doesn't feel like you're playing on Machu Picchu,
Yeah.
By the way, Bruce has actually climbed Machu Picchu this week.
This is where he is right now, I think.
We need to get his take on that when he's back from South America.
He's probably taking his golf club, so we'll see what that's like.
That'd be a good feeling, wouldn't it, hitting the ball off there? So you drive in. I mean, it's a really nice... The car park is actually interesting. We parked the car. We were teeing off first. So we were going off at like 7:50. So we're out super early. Car park's empty. Parked up. We left there at about 2:00. The space between them, there was almost no space to get your car out on a full car park.
Really?
I honestly didn't think I'd do it. I somehow managed it. I thought I was going to need a crane or something. Anyway, clubhouse, beautiful, sort of, like I say, that sort of all familiar dark stone.
Like a ye olde building?
Yeah, it's the original clubhouse. Beautiful.
One floor?
2 floors.
Quite
big, actually.
Really?
Quite big, yeah. It's a busy club, this. Like, really busy. Like, you couldn't get a tee time at a weekend. It's members. I'd sort of pulled a few strings because I'd messaged Mike and said, I'm up there and I'm desperately keen to play. Could the club,
Did you get some dirty looks across the fairways? I would have given you a dirty look.
Well, it was tricky to get around not knowing the course, particularly when the fog we had. But, just a really nice Yorkshire building clubhouse. The original one, putting green sort of folds down and off the sort of doors on the ground floor into there. You can just imagine the scenes in 1914 when the club opened.
Traditional club, jacket and tie?
No, very, very relaxed. Super
back.
chilled. Yeah.
Okay.
Very kind of, I would say my experience at Crosland Heath is the absolute poster child for sustainable golf in every sense.
Well, Heathland golf in general is pretty sustainable, isn't it? But
not crazy high cost. I don't know what the annual dues are for the members, but the visiting green fee is ridiculously good value. Very relaxed atmosphere to, what people wear, encouraging a decent pace of play, a really cool routing, a very enjoyable golf course that you can, people of any ability can play. It's super duper, like really, really good. And I think I'd wanted to play there for a year, and there's always a danger that somewhere doesn't quite live up to the hype.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's rewind slightly because we talked a bit about MacKenzie. We haven't connected the dots completely. When was this designed and by whom?
1914 by Alistair MacKenzie, which would make this a relatively early course in his career.
Okay.
So this is when he's
just polished off all Woodley and
and if you look through the chronology, which I couldn't do in full detail because 1 year will take you half an hour to read through, and it's fairly turgid stuff. But it would, at that time he was essentially the architect for the greater Leeds area. Really, every golf course he would come to consult, and he would offer some plans. It's a decent way before, obviously, the likes of his work at Augusta National or going over to Australia. I believe, I don't think that had come just yet. I might be wrong on that, but he's cutting his teeth on loads and loads of different golf courses. So the really interesting piece for me with Crosland Heath, having played it, was bloody hell, that's a really difficult task to lay a golf course out in this piece of land.
Talk to me a little bit about the feel of it, the routing, the land, the layout.
Well, the routing's the
greens.
really interesting bit. So it's very, very high ground. You've got this huge dramatic quarry around the top part of the course. So I think that would be to the north.
What were they quarrying for?
So, just like a natural quarry. Maybe they had quarried it for the stones. It's all that sort of same Pennine stone that gives the buildings the colour. So you've got these huge, massive, dramatic depressions in the land. But then that's at the top part, and that lends itself to a couple of good one-shot holes, like par threes across them and stuff.
Kind of a bit Cleve Hilly, I'm feeling.
But it's all clustered in that one area. And then you've got this sort of great heathland that just runs across the top everywhere else. So the exercise of laying a golf course out there, I think, is quite interesting because, clearly you can see one-shot holes and par threes and stuff across those and shots to be played across the quarry. But you can't just go to a part of the course and then just play par three, par three, par three, par three, and then play sort of fairly, traditional 2-shot and 3-shot golf holes thereafter. So the routing's really interesting. You sort of play in and up to the quarry on the first hole, and you come away from it, and then you revisit that same quarry 3 times within the round. Each time then you get to it and you're playing a par 3 across the ravine, or it'll give you a dramatic shot away. So that's super clever, really, really good. But it's nuts. When we got there at 7:50, the pro had this anorak knowledge of fog. I thought, God, this guy seems to know everything about fog. It was so foggy.
As in the clouds fog?
Yeah, so foggy when we got there. You're talking 50, 60 yards of visibility. It was so thick. I was saying, we can't go. He says, no, we can see the 4th green. That was his sort of bellwether. And I sort of said, how come you know so much about fog? He's like, well, we just get it so much, particularly this time of year. It comes in pretty much every morning because we're so high up. So we're playing up the first quite gingerly, really trying to hit the ball 150 yards just to sort of get away and hoping the fog lifts, because it's a par 5. I've got no idea where we're hitting to. So I've plodded a couple of shots down there, walked down, and friend Jim says, is that the green over there on the left? I'm thinking, it can't be. When you just look at a green, there's no fairway that runs at it. It looks like it's part of a separate hole. It's 60 yards away. It made no sense. It just it can't be that. But then I couldn't see anything further past the fairway, so I keep walking, and I walk ahead of my ball, and I can't see anything. And then eventually I get to the end, and it's the fairway just runs out here. What's going on? It's really strange. There's no green. I'm genuinely stuck at this point on the first hole. I do not know where the green is. I think I might have to admit defeat after 2 shots. And then we see the silhouettes of the group in front, who are obviously playing their second tee shot. So I've sort of had to shout over to them and say, look, sorry guys, where's the green? They're like, it's down here.
On a members' day.
Brilliant. Yeah, on a members' day. Just spot the visitor. So I then walk forward again. I'm now 130 yards ahead of my golf ball, and I just about make out there's this green perched across the quarry on a shelf. It's bonkers par 5 to open. I've never played an opening hole like it.
So you got to try and get as close to the quarry as you can in 2, and then wedge across.
I suspect with a good bit of wind, or for a really big hitter, you could thump one up there, and then you could have a dig at it. You can play, and if you don't get the green, it goes in the quarry. It's very steep, and you're well below the green. But they've all kind of kept it closely mown and stuff, so that you can still play a shot out of it. You're not going to lose your golf ball. But yeah, truly incredible. And then you go back and you play the second shot. Is then your second hole's 110-yard par 3, again right across the other direction of the quarry, and then you work your way back out. Never played in fog like it. I mean, it was touch and go as to whether we should be playing. It was
It would have been better if you'd had knowledge of the course, perhaps. MacKenzie's obviously famous for his green sites. How do they stack up?
I mean, I think you can notice it. I don't know what you think about MacKenzie golf courses. You touched on it earlier when you were saying no one else has ever been written about so much as Alistair MacKenzie, and I would agree. And I think there's quite a bit of hyperbole with him.
You think?
I don't know. It's hard. You look at courses, and so much of the courses you're looking at is how well they've been looked after and to what extent those principles have stuck. It is a brilliant golf course, Crosland Heath. It's very different when you look at MacKenzie green sites and you look at the stuff that's there with hazards or, the way bunkers are constructed or the way, contours. And they look really different to what Simpson would put, Like, it's much more angular. It looks much more like somebody's been at it with a spade and shovel and moved that around. Simpson, I think, was much more natural and there's much more. It's a lot more flowing. There is an unmistakable characteristic to a MacKenzie course, I would say. Maybe when you talk about the greens, like the slopes, he was always talked about as having, ridiculously contoured greens. I get the sense here, because it's pretty tricky land, and he would have been, there was only certain things he could do, and he had to work with some pretty natural green sites, would be my guess. They're actually pretty flat, so they're not crazy, but they are smaller targets. So it's different to some of that stuff that you'll look at when people write about the design principles of MacKenzie, that you've got these, you can putt from anywhere and they're wild slopes and all of that stuff. It's not quite like that. You find it difficult
to putt from a quarry.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, can you? So it feels a little bit different in that sense. But the par threes are like absolute knockouts.
Yeah, what's the standout holes then?
The par three is what they're famous for. So we're playing the winter course. It's relatively short. It's about 5,500 yards.
What's the winter course? What does that mean?
Well, it's just their tees in the winter, so there's a few of them pushed up short because you've got some kind of...
No different greens or anything like that?
No. It's just a bit shorter. Okay. But it played really nice, particularly when you couldn't see much more than 70 yards. You didn't really need too many really long holes. But you can stretch it out, and I think the wind blows exceptionally hard up there, as you'd expect. Imagine, yeah. So, really that's the kind of big defence. A lot of the holes... I felt like the holes played in slightly different directions. I've read other things that say, well, because of the way it's routed and you have to get back up to that quarry, you end up playing quite a few sort of second shots up the hill that are sort of semi-blind. I think that was in Sean Arbel's Golf Club Atlas review. There are a lot of blind shots. There are a few, yeah. There are a couple. The par threes are without question, they are absolute knockout.
Are they? And they're all across quarries, are they?
4 out of the 5 sit in that quarry zone.
Okay.
And
what par is it? 70,
good question.
70,
I don't know.
71?
Yeah, see, that's the great thing. I didn't know. I was genuinely too busy enjoying it.
Par is vulgar, that's why.
We start with a 5, and then I can probably count these up in my head. I think there's 1, 2 others. I want to say it would be maybe a 68 or a 69. Might be it's probably in the summer. It's a 70 or a 71, something like that. But yeah, the par threes are absolute knockout, and the one that's not in the quarry is also. It's one of the most incredible green sites. It would be such a great place with the drone on a nice day. But I actually really enjoyed some of the longer holes as well. They all move in a slightly different direction, I found. The heather, really adds to it.
Is it tight, or is it quite...
No, it's not crazy tight. There's a few great holes. There's one, the 4th hole. So I mentioned you go up to this quarry and you play the 3rd back down, which is a really long, difficult par 4 dogleg left. Unmistakable sort of MacKenzie bunkering and stuff as you look down to the green side. But then the 4th has got this that... It's kind of like Last of the Summer Wine again. You remember the sort of rocky walls they used to sit on and look at each other wistfully. It's a bit like that. So you play underneath the clubhouse, and it's kind of a fairly short par 4. But then you've got this green that's sort of perched up in a shelf or just around the wall on the left. Brilliant. Just a glorious golf hole.
One of those ones you can have a crack at, but it can make you look silly.
Yeah, you could have a dig and try and get up close. There's fairly minimal use of hazards as well. There's not loads of bunkers, and I think that's one of the things I loved about it. There is, it would be really easy throughout 110 years of history at Crosland Heath to really add to it and start putting more bunkers in. And I got the sense they'd been really restrained, whether there's some covenants on the land or why.
Yeah, it's also for I'm just guessing, but for a club that needs to be modest in its means. If it's £40 a green fee, it's not going to be low, swathed in cash. It's just adding bunkers is just going to add cost.
But so many clubs make different decisions, don't they? They'd put more bunkers in. It's like, well, I think we can make this a bit tougher or whatever. The fact that it's all very restrained with the use of hazards. You've got a lot of natural landforms which work brilliantly well as hazards.
How's the heather?
You're going to ask me whether it's Ling or Bell.
No, actually. I'm going to, heather's an interesting one. You go somewhere like Formby does it incredibly well, where they grade their heather and you can play out of it, and it's penal, but it can be mega penal, but it can also be playable. How is the playability of the heather up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's all sort of fairly down. It's that time of the year in the winter where I think you lose some of the thickness to it. Like, do you remember playing New Zealand?
I wasn't going to
over the women's.
New Zealand was,
and that was so thick, but it was fully in flower and it's up, so it gets an extra bit more density to it, doesn't it? The heather there, I thought was nice. It's not like
is it loads
it's
of
not
it?
It's not wall to wall.
Okay,
but there is enough of it.
Yeah.
And there's not, they've done a pretty reasonable job of like trees, and there's room, and it's airy, and it has a feeling of, it feels like the sort of the younger sibling of an Allwoodley, in that sense. It's like there's not the landscape. There's not tons of trees everywhere. Heather. It's all very natural in terms of how the course aesthetic looks and whatnot.
Okay, so if you're going that way, build us a trip in terms of, what's it near that's worth, building a trip out of, and if you're going to play like
a night at
Ganton,
Holmfirth for a kickoff.
What?
A night in Holmfirth.
Holmfirth. But is it nearer? Because Ganton or Woodley Moortown get bound together quite a lot, but they're not actually that close, are they? So
no, and I really you're kind of going off in a different direction there from Leeds.
I mean, all Woodley and Moortown are about a mile away. But
like driving out, I was going through Oldham and stuff like this. You're not in the most you're not in golfing Mecca, I don't think. There are other courses around there. I don't think Halifax is too far away. Okay. No, I've not played Halifax, and that's another.
You talked about that for a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's a Moortown That's a moorland golf course rather than a heather, I believe. Might be wrong. You can couple up with a few of those, and I think again it would be crazy good value on golf. I just think there's nothing more rewarding than finding like really good affordable golf. Like it's the best thing ever. When you find somewhere like Crosland Heath and you think
Appleby, another example of just like really good, affordable, sustainable golf.
There's just a real. It's just nice, and you go in there and you're thinking, do you know what? I kind of expecting this to be nice enough, but it'll have 3 or 4 knockout holes, and I was completely wrong. It over-delivered. It was a really solid golf course. You could play it regularly. Yes, it's very high up, but it's not hill climbing. You're really not sort of like you don't feel like you're heaving your way up hills and stuff like that. It feels like maybe a slightly more refined, slightly less crazy version of a Cleve Hill, in that sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd probably say it means the golfing characteristics are very different in terms of what it's asking you to do, but I'd say it's definitely a lot more refined in terms of green sites and whatnot. Cleve's a really more of a sort of a pre-1900s feel to it, and very, very minimalist in terms of how it's laid out. But I look at those types of courses and think about some of the places that we've played that are cheap as chips. And then yesterday you sent me a text going, is that what range balls cost yesterday? £8.50?
Yeah, on the company account I saw £8.50 at Bromsgrove Golf Centre. And the only thing you'd ever go to Bromsgrove Golf Centre for would be to hit balls, because they go driving range there. I assumed, I text you, is that what range balls cost now? £8.50.
But there's just so many good golf courses under £50.
Yeah.
So many.
£8.50 is a lot, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But then loads of people are saying it's not. It's 10, 11 quid or whatever. I mean, you can start going around Greater London.
I heard somewhere. I heard someone was telling me Silvermere around London was like 16 quid 100 or something around that.
Mental. You can play Sonedale Heath for about 40 quid or 35 quid. And you can get around that in 2 hours. And it's bonkers, isn't it? I think
I'm with you. I think there's something very, very satisfying about playing somewhere where you're not being not overcharged. That's the wrong word. But you're not being charged. You feel like you're getting a steal. That's what the thing is. When you feel like you're getting a bargain for playing golf, and it's still enjoyable. I think there's not much that's doable. And the contradiction about everything we do is that, there is a possibility that more people will go to check out Crosland Heath now. And does it then lose its charm? I don't know. We've discussed this. We've discussed this previously. Pardon?
With one S as well, Crosland. CROS.
See, you knew that I'd misspelt it in my head even when I was saying it.
Yeah, just before anyone goes and Googles it. But it just, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It's great playing with my mate and just kind of turning up there. And it was so foggy for 10 holes, like so foggy. So much so that really you couldn't play really that competitively. I mean, we were for quite a few holes relying on the group in front to say like third fairway clear, and you'd be like, right.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it was clutch. And there's a few blind shots, like the 18th tee shots, beautiful teeing ground. Like it's an impossible. You're just teeing off into oblivion. You can't really see where you're hitting it. But all of that stuff just
I don't
adds to
mind
it.
blind tee shots. I don't think I particularly like blind approaches.
No, and there's not stacks.
There's not loads of golf courses that spring to mind that have got blind approaches. Raya's obviously got one, but they deal with that incredibly well with the 2 markers.
Yep.
Silith has got some blind approaches. I can't think of a ton of golf courses that have got blind approaches, and I'm not talking about par 3s, because at least they can, if they give you a marker for par 3, at least they know where you're hitting it from. But like with approaches, it's like you don't know distance, you don't really know line. Everything then gets a bit.
Well, the first 10 approaches were all blind.
Because you were in the fog.
Because we were in the fog. But I mean, that was pretty tough, looking for a few discs in the floor, yellow and red, and trying to work out even what they were, whether it was 100 or 150.
Yeah.
But all that adds to the excitement. I just think it just has a brilliant sense of place. Like it just knows exactly what it is. It's a really good golf course. They've got a great membership. It's busy. Everyone's in there. They're all nice. They're all enjoying it.
I suppose the key question is: were you accepted? Were you accepted as a visitor on a members' day? Did people smile at you?
Loads of people really chatted. Like, oh yeah, you've enjoyed it. Have you liked it?
Oh, that's nice.
And it's weird. You get loads of messages on Instagram or whatever. People, saying, oh, let me know how it is. I'm really curious to know what you think. Because one guy sort of said, oh, I've thought about playing it for a while, but I've always felt it's in that sort of second or third tier of Yorkshire golf courses. But if it is not as good as All Woodley. If you go in with the expectation that this is going to blow Ganton or All Woodley away, it's not going to. But it is a brilliant addition to a golf trip in that part of the world, and building on all the great MacKenzie heritage that's there. So.
I think that we are quite poor at that. Like, I would say that we don't visit lots of Midlands courses because they're on our doorstep. You're more likely to go and play Crosland Heath than you are to check out something in the Midlands. Yeah,
and yet we could, very easily kind of go and look at some more courses.
We should
in the Midlands.
do that.
You're quite right.
We've got a trip to Leicester next week.
Oh yeah, of course, going to Hinckley, aren't we? That's going to be exciting. Not a golfing mecca in Leicester, I don't think, really. I've never really played anything out there. Luffenham Heath would be and I've not played that.
Yeah, we're going to go find out.
That's a good point. It's a good reminder. I forgot we've got that day. It's exciting, isn't
Tuesday,
it? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just kind of, I suppose, closing remarks on Crosland Heath would be: go for the one-shotters. You stay for the vibe, and you stay for the full package of what it is. The golf course as a whole is brilliant. So many great holes. I mean, 16 is like a sort of it's tough to make a good uphill par 4. Like mid-length uphill par 4, it's tough. And the green is just brilliant. It's like a little bathtub, and it sits immediately next to the 8th green. So the two, are almost either side of this mound.
Shades of Cinque Port. Little bathtub greens.
No, not quite. It's like really narrow. It's like really MacKenzie. And that's just for somebody who can't quite find the words to describe it. But you look at it and it's unmistakably MacKenzie, I'd say. Just really, really solid. Great sense of place. Highly enjoyable. It was in really good condition for the time of year. Welcoming place. Would 100% want to go back.
Good stuff. For those of you that are listening prior to early December, please do, if you're interested in coming along to the Christmas party, which is going on in Urban, please do get in touch. It's FOC2 to come along.
You don't get much for free in this world.
No, you don't. But you
can't get a bucket of... I mean, that's £8.50 cheaper than hitting range balls at Bromsgrove.
No, well, it's not free when you're down there. You have to buy pints, but you can come and have pints. You can come and have pints. It's just free to come and have pints.
You'll buy pints.
That'll cost you probably £8.50, I would have thought, or just ballpark.
No, do you know what? I was chatting to James. He's like, no, I try not to take people's eyes out on the beer too much because, we charge for the Sims. So I sort of...
What date is our Christmas party, Sam?
It is the 8th of December, Tom.
It's the 8th of December.
And there'll be a MacKenzie up for first place.
Alistair MacKenzie.
A MacKenzie golf bag. Okay. Sorry for the confusion.
Sorry, I thought you were giving away a MacKenzie golf club or maybe
all the
a book
bones
of
of
his
Alistair
chronology.
MacKenzie. Some dusty old...
A MacKenzie bag up for grabs in the in the sim. But
a pair of MacKenzie spectacles.
If you're still here, I'm absolutely amazed. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.